Ali Stroker is a total trailblazer. After making a splash on the Glee project and making history in Deaf West's hailed revival of Spring Awakening, she's now redefining the role of Ado Annie in Daniel Fish's innovative revival of Oklahoma. The sentiment of her show-stopping number, I Can't Say No, rings true in her own life. Hear how she turned the challenge of being in a wheelchair into opportunity, how a canceled flight led to her current star turn, and more on this week's Show People. Welcome to Show People, Ali.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. You're in Oklahoma.
I'm in Oklahoma on Broadway.
Yeah, and you're Ado Annie. This is iconic stuff here.
Yeah, it's a dream come true.
This is a very Broadway moment to be playing like an iconic Rodgers and Hammerstein character singing these songs on Broadway. I mean, this is sort of like...
I never imagined that I would be in Oklahoma on Broadway.
Right, why?
I consider Oklahoma like one of the standard classics.
Yeah.
And
you don't consider yourself a classic kind of girl?
Well, I guess I am. And, you know, I studied at Oklahoma in college and knew it growing up. And I always imagined that some of those characters had to fit into a certain box. Mm-hmm. And, you know, throughout my career, my strategy was always like, be outside of the box, Ali. Like, you know,
don't worry about the
you.
box.
Exactly. Yeah. And here we are, and I'm arriving in this moment in my career where I'm doing a role that I just never imagined that I would get to play. And it's so cool because I'm getting to do my version of it.
So maybe it turns out you do kind of fit in a box.
Yeah.
A different kind of box.
Exactly. And maybe outside of the box is now what people want. And that to me is like where things might be shifting, and I'm really excited about it.
This sounds like a good point to bring up Daniel Fish. Daniel Fish is the director of this Oklahoma. This is a really outside-the-box version of Oklahoma. I actually got to see it up at Bard College a few summers back. You were not in it at that point.
No.
I've said this all the time, but Rodgers and Hammerstein, I think they really thrive having a really visionary director sort of digging into them. When did you first meet Daniel, and what was your audition like, and how did you become a part of this production?
I met Daniel at my first audition.
Okay.
It was a really fun experience because I did all the material, and then he was like, all right, let's do Can't Say No, and now just do like your version of it, like a cappella. And that's sort of where I don't know, maybe where I like bloom. It's kind of like when someone says, okay, now do what you want to do, it's like, yes. And so I did like my sort of like country pop star version of it. And he was like, great. And then 2 weeks later, I was called back. Okay. I was in Cleveland doing Spelling Bee at Cleveland Playhouse.
To rave reviews.
Thank you.
You were Olive.
Yeah, I was Olive.
Yes.
And so the day of the callback, I was supposed to fly back to New York. I'm on a plane in Cleveland on the runway, and the flight ends up getting canceled.
No, that's not cool.
Awful. You know, really, you're like, I'm gonna make this callback, and then
Broadway callback, Ado Annie.
Yeah. And my boyfriend, David Perlow's with me at this point, and he was like, let's make a tape.
Look at that, sprung into action.
He was like, let's just make this tape, and I was like, I'm not sure if this is what they want, and he was like, don't worry, let's just put this material on tape.
What was the tape? What would you do? What was it like?
The tape. So I was, of course, like really emotional, and I you know, really, really wanted this part. Yeah. So we do 2 takes. The second take, we're like, that's it. We send it in. I'm doing the song a cappella. Yeah. You know, I don't have any accompaniment or anything. Where were you, in your
hotel room?
I was in the extended stay,
fantastic.
In the corner, right? And 3 days later, I found out that I got it. And this was for the St. Anne's production.
Yes, I know. It wasn't Broadway yet.
Not yet.
But I knew it was coming to Broadway.
You did?
Yeah, because I knew it was brilliant. I saw it previously, so I knew that this would turn into a big moment for you.
Thank you. And it was just also a moment of like, as an actor, you make so many self-tapes.
Yeah.
And you always think like, no one's going to see this. This isn't going to work out.
Sometimes it works.
And sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. So keep making those self-tapes.
So I should be very clear that the first production I saw, the actress was not in a wheelchair playing this part. Did it come up at the audition? Was it talked about? Obviously, it changes the dynamics of the production and the staging.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you're very used to this. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're very used to going in for things. You were in Spring Awakening. You were fantastic. You made Broadway history by being the first actress in a wheelchair on Broadway.
Yeah.
So I think you're kind of probably used to going in for things where maybe it's not what they're necessarily looking for, but it's sort of like an interesting, you come in as sort of an interesting, talented option.
Yeah. So I am cast more often than not in roles that are not specific around disability or not. And so what is really beautiful is that like my chair always comes in the audition room with me. So there's no hiding.
Yeah.
There's no like, oh, when should I tell them? It's
Right,
like,
right,
this is a
right.
part of
Yeah.
who I am.
Uh-huh.
And I try to use my chair in some way
Yep.
in the audition room to show that there is a real opportunity here. And, you know, I live by this motto of like turning your limitations into your opportunities, right? So like, how can, you know, an actor who's in a chair, you know, how can that enhance Ado Annie? So after I got cast, you know, it wasn't a discussion in the audition room, but after I got cast, I met with Daniel and John, the choreographer, and we chatted for like an hour, and I talked to them a little bit about how I move and what the vocabulary is on wheels. Right. And what is so fun about Ado Annie is that she has these relationships with two different guys in the show. I know.
We all talk about her. Everyone in Oklahoma talks about her.
Yeah. And what's cool is that, you know, the intimacy and the closeness is so specific now because I'm in a chair. So without giving too much away, like in one of the relationships, like, well, I'll give it away. Will Parker like sits on my lap and then I sit on Allie Hackham's lap. And the intimacy is just really that much more specific. What I am really just so excited about is that all of a sudden in a show like Oklahoma, where certain themes are just a part of the story, now we are addressing disability and sexuality and intimacy and relationships. And we don't need to talk about it. We just see it. And we get the opportunity to observe it. And out in the real world, you know, so often I feel like people are nervous about staring or looking. Right. And, you know, we're taught, don't stare, that's rude. And in some instances, it really is. But in theater, we give the audience permission to watch and observe Ado Annie, who's in a chair, for 3 hours. Right. And so in many ways, like, to get, you know, growing up, I never saw anything about disability and sexuality and relationships. And so the fact that this is now just like a part of this revival of Oklahoma, to me is just really groundbreaking.
I love it. So audiences have to walk out of there a little changed. I mean, they have to.
Yeah, well, they're seeing something a little bit different. Yeah. And when we're exposed to something that, in my opinion, just fits seamlessly into the story and into this character and her relationships, when we see that it works so well, all of a sudden we're not as maybe uncomfortable, and we are exposed, right? And that is how we progress.
Okay, we're going to talk more about Ado Annie and Ali Stroker after this break. We'll be right back. We are back with Ali Stroker, currently starring in Oklahoma, ! At the Circle in the Square Theater. I love good punctuation in a title.
Me too, me too. That exclamation point is important.
And Ado Annie actually could have an exclamation point after her name because she also has that energy. Let's talk about this girl. She is promiscuous. This as we talked about, sort of the sexuality of the character. She can't say no. Can't.
She can't.
It's interesting because Rodgers and Hammerstein, the classic Rodgers and Hammerstein there's always the main romantic leads and then sort of the comedic leads, and that is you and Will Parker, played by James Davis, right? And this is his Broadway debut. So you're showing him around. You're like, this is what Broadway's like. Old Broadway pro over here. You could say like that. There's a lot of laughs played out of her promiscuity. You know, it's very easy to sort of label her a certain way. But then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, but actually, Rodgers and Hammerstein are just showing like sexuality, and so it is really easy to sort of turn it and make it very modern, because all they're really doing is she's just kind of being herself and being empowered.
Yeah.
And was that interesting for you to dig into?
Absolutely. I think that Ado Annie, it's very easy to play her as a little bit more of like a caricature,
Yeah.
and she's not that smart. And I think she's really smart.
Right.
And I think she's naive in certain ways that we kind of fall in love with, because she's always asking questions in a really genuine way. And that's where I think the comedy lies.
Right. You are actually not from Oklahoma.
I'm not.
You're a Jersey girl.
Yes.
Is there anything Jersey about you?
I spent every summer down on Long Beach Island,
Oh.
which is considered the Jersey Shore.
Jersey
so
Shore, yeah.
Maybe that's I love wearing hoops.
Okay.
I'm actually wearing hoops today.
And you actually, don't you surf? Haven't you surfed?
Yes, I have surfed, but I surfed out in California.
Okay.
Not on the Jersey Shore.
Okay.
But I've done plenty of boogie boarding
Okay.
on
Okay.
the Jersey Shore. Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about your background. So you are in a wheelchair because when you were 2 years old, you were in a car accident.
Yes.
And you are paralyzed from
The chest down.
chest down.
Yep.
Which is really interesting that I never thought about this, that you don't have control of your diaphragm or your core.
Yeah.
And that you had to find your own way to sing, which
Yeah.
is fascinating. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. When I began to sing, I learned to sing by imitating, which I've heard many people say. And to me, singing was never like a technical thing. It was always something that I was either imitating somebody or I was expressing myself. It wasn't until a little bit later that I started taking voice lessons, and we created sort of this technique that I could tap into. I also just always had a lot of resonance in my voice, which is actually really helpful as far as being heard. And, my breath control is not as strong as it would be if I had, the use of my core and my diaphragm. But I found like tricks.
You have a big voice.
Yeah.
So that's shocking.
Yeah. And, singing has always felt for me like the place where it's safe to express myself. And singing and singing a song that, was in a musical and it was a character, somebody else, it gave me permission to feel those feelings of anger or sadness or joy, all of those things that maybe felt too scary to express, in real life. And I also never felt like I had any limitations around my voice. It was hard at times to be young and be in a chair and not get to physically express myself like all of my peers. But like when I got into a voice lesson or I was in a rehearsal or I was working on a show, I wasn't left behind. I wasn't limited in any way when it came to the singing. And when you have a limitation, oftentimes the things that you do have become enhanced and are strengths. And I was raised that we're not going to pay attention to the things you can't do. We're going to focus on the things that you can. And both of my parents just were so unbelievably supportive of my love and passion for theater.
Let's talk about them.
Yeah.
What do your parents do?
My dad was a teacher for 35 years and taught physical education and health. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom for a long time and then worked for the town that we grew up in. And both of them, after my brother and I got hurt, they were in a position of just the unknown, with 2 children with disabilities, and they didn't really know how to do any of it. But both of them had a certain amount of creativity and obviously will to make this work, this new life that they were handed. I'm so grateful to both of them because they always just really, really believed in me. And, you know, my mom talks about I was in The Wiz when I was in 4th grade. And, and I played Dorothy.
Oh.
And my mom says they came to see the dress rehearsal and they left and she looked at my dad in the car. I was still inside, you know, getting notes or whatever. And she was like, we have something really special. Allie has something really special. And
that was the performance where they saw it.
Yeah, they saw me perform on a stage for the first time. And they were like, what are we going to do about this? Because neither of them are in this industry. Neither of them are actors. Neither of them are singers. But they were so determined to help me succeed where they knew I had a gift.
Wow. You can sing Be a Lion if you want. I'd be into that, by the way. It's one of my favorite musical theater. I'll be the lion, but I can't sing.
I sing it all the time. You can look on YouTube. There are a lot of versions. There's actually this really moving...
Are you on YouTube singing Be a Lion?
Yes.
Oh.
I did a version of it with one of my castmates from Spring Awakening, Amelia, and she signs the whole thing and I sing it. And it's really powerful, and it was at 54 Below.
Okay.
Check it out on YouTube.
Oh, I'm literally going to end this interview right now because I love that. And I love you. Okay, we'll be right back with more Allie Stroker. We are back with Allie Stroker. So happy you're here. You're such a great talker. I mean, you really, I guess maybe you learned how to sort of present yourself really early on. Like you just said, make people feel comfortable and sort of.
Yeah. I have this like idea that helps me sometimes where I feel like when I get nervous or I get uncomfortable, which I'm not right now, but it's like I have learned how to host my own party. So like when you have something, some part of you that people are either, you know, curious about. It's important, I have always found, to know how to articulate it in the way that you want to be seen.
Right.
Then you don't have to rely on someone else who doesn't know anything about you or what it's like to, you know, live your life in a chair. Then they understand. And I've actually learned that this is actually like proven science, that when you have a physical disability, your emotional IQ ends up becoming heightened, because all the time where kids would be out running on the playground and like developing physically, I was chatting with teachers. I was chatting with adults.
Right.
And I also learned very early on that I would have to be my own best advocate when it comes to like getting my needs met or needing help. And so if I could articulate all that in a way that was clear for the other person, then again, anybody's fear is, you know, is hopefully lessened because they know, you know, how or what to do.
I love that you're so used to making people comfortable, and maybe now with Ado Annie and this version of Oklahoma, you're making people a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I kind of love that.
Yeah.
You're on stage and they're all sort of like dealing with it.
Yeah, well, that's one of the really powerful parts about being an actor, is that you're given material.
Yeah.
My job, first and foremost, every night is to tell a story. They're not my own words, but this role is mine. So it's like I'm given permission to maybe make things a little bit more difficult for someone to digest.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that, being an actor, that is my job. Gosh, like I'm 31 years old, and to get to perform at this level is such a privilege and such an opportunity. You know, I dreamt of being on Broadway my whole life, and had my first experience almost 4 years ago now with the revival of Spring Awakening.
Thank you, Michael Arden.
Thank you, Michael Arden. To get to do this is really just incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't take it for granted at all, because I'm just so excited for people to see this.
Yeah.
I think it will change things.
Mm-hmm. What do you want people to know about your life? Because life in a wheelchair in New York City is not the easiest thing. There are a lot of challenges.
Yes.
Even doing, you get cast in the show and then it's like, oh, it's going to the Circle in the Square. That theater is like sort of underground, and the dressing rooms, and there's a lot of stairs backstage. Like a lot of things have to be sort of figured out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure your navigation is there's a whole thing that needs to be sort of worked out. What is maybe the biggest misperception about your life? Or
with all of the challenges, with every moment of frustration, at the end of the day, I really love being in a wheelchair. And the reason I love it is because every day, every moment, I am forced to think differently. And if I wasn't in this body, and if I didn't have my wheelchair, I wouldn't have that opportunity. And I think that I have attracted certain kinds of people and certain kinds of opportunities because of this thing that could have, in many ways, defeated me. And, every person is handed a challenge. And I have learned, I've been hurt 30 years this year, that to wrap my arms around it and to realize that even though I need help when I arrive at that theater to get in the door, to get down the stairs, to get into my dressing room, I get the chance to connect with someone. They are able to be helpful to me, which in so many ways makes that person feel good. And I accept that part of this success is that I have to have this team of people help me get on that stage every single night.
You're just naturally an inspiration. I mean, I think your life has sort of led you to this place now, and I'm sure you hear it all the time and on social media and just people at the stage door. You must get that a lot, that people are just like, look to you, and you've just fit that role beautifully. So I'm just excited that so many people are going to get to hear your story. I love hearing your story, and I could keep hearing your story. But who inspires you?
My family. My mom and my dad really, really inspire me. And my best friends. There's people who really know me. To be out in the public is a real, it's a real dance, right? Because there are parts of me that I'm not going to be able to hide, that just come along with like what I share. And then there are parts of me that are so important to keep for me and the people that are really, really close to me. Even though if my best friend was sitting right there, they'd be like, oh, this is like a conversation we would have. It's not like a put on thing. But I'm really inspired by, my partner, my boyfriend, who every day wakes up and has his own challenges and yet is so committed to being in service to actors. He's a teacher. And, I really, really admire people and leaders who want to serve the world and specific communities.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big moment for you. This is a great performance. Who do you want to meet? Who are you like dying to meet?
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Dolly Parton.
Oh, wow, Dolly Parton.
I want to meet Dolly Parton.
I love that
so
answer.
badly.
Dolly Parton. I think she'll appreciate your twangy
amazing.
808 Annie.
She's
Dolly
amazing.
Parton.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's who I really would love.
Okay. Have you been like digging into Dolly to get into 808 Annie, or is this something you've always loved?
I do. I listen to her, and I didn't grow up singing country.
Right.
But I listened to her and her vibrato and her riffs and the way that she, sings certain vowels, and I've allowed her definitely to inspire my singing.
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton.
Okay. Let's get it out there.
Let's get it out there.
Let's secret
Let's
that.
create it.
Yes, let's make it happen.
Let's make it
I love
happen.
it. Dolly Parton. Why not? She's been around. She's been in the hood.
She's a legend.
She's a legend.
She's a legend.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming here. I could honestly talk to you forever, but you'll be back. You'll be back.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on everything. I can't wait to see what's next. I feel like there's going to be a lot. You're a lady who does firsts, right?
Yeah.
You were the first actress in a wheelchair to graduate from NYU Tisch. First actress in a wheelchair on Broadway. Maybe there's going to be some other firsts coming up. I mean, it's first.
We'll see.
She's
we'll
first.
See.
Yeah.
She's first.
First actress in a wheelchair on Show People.
Yes,
I love
I love it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
so
you
great to see
very
you.
much for having me.
Everybody go see Oklahoma. It's at the Circle in the Square Theater. And she's Ado Annie.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.